What happens when the galaxy's most feared predators corner what they believe is helpless prey, only to discover they've made the worst mistake in cosmic history? In the cold depths of space, where silence is supposed to reign supreme, something impossible echoes through the void. Human laughter. Not the nervous chuckle of fear, not the desperate giggle of madness, but something far more terrifying to those who hear it. The genuine amusement of a species that has just realized it's time to stop pretending to be civilized. The Kythera Consortium has ruled through fear for millennia. Their bioships can dissolve planets. Their warriors are bred for maximum lethality. They've never met a species they couldn't break, consume, or enslave. Today, they're about to learn why humans are the only species in the galaxy that laughs when the monsters come calling. This is the story of what happens when predators become prey, when the hunted becomes the hunter, and when humanity finally stops playing nice with the neighborhood bullies. This is the day the galaxy learned that humans don't fear the dark, they are the thing that lives in it. Buckle up. You're about to witness why every civilized species in the galaxy has nightmares about waking up a sleeping giant named humanity. The mining ship Resilient Dawn drifted through the asteroid field like a wounded animal, its hull scarred from weeks of running battles. Emergency lights painted the bridge in crimson shadows as Captain Elena Vasquez studied the tactical display with growing unease. 43 crew members remained from the original complement of 120. The Kythera bioships had been hunting them for 2 months, ever since humanity had dared to refuse the consortium's demands for tribute. Marcus Chun, the ship's chief engineer, leaned against his console with exhaustion written across his weathered face. "Captain, we're running on fumes. Life support is down to 30% efficiency, and the engines won't last another jump. We need to find somewhere to hide, and fast." Elena nodded grimly, her fingers dancing across the navigation controls. The asteroid field ahead offered their only hope, a maze of spinning rock that might confuse the bioship's organic sensors long enough for them to effect repairs. "Take us in slow, Marcus. Keep the reactor signature minimal." The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of failing systems and the distant groaning of stressed hull plates. Through the view screen, the asteroids loomed like sleeping giants, their surfaces pocked with craters from eons of collisions. Elena had chosen this particular field because the rocks contained high concentrations of ferromagnetic minerals, natural jamming that might mask their presence. "Contacts." Ensign Rodriguez's voice cracked with fear as he hunched over the sensor station. Multiple biosignatures approaching from 7 different vectors. "They've found us, Captain." Elena's jaw tightened as the tactical display lit up with hostile contacts. 7 Kythera hunter-killers, each one a living nightmare of chitin and fury, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent veins. The smallest of them massed 3 times more than the Resilient Dawn, and their weapon pods could dissolve the mining ship's armor in seconds. The lead bioship broadcast on all frequencies, its translated message dripping with predatory satisfaction. "Human vessel, you have fled far enough. The Kythera Consortium claims this system and all within it. Surrender now, and your deaths will be swift. Continue to resist, and we will feed your screams to our spawn for entertainment." Marcus moved closer to Elena's chair, his voice barely a whisper. "Captain, what are your orders? We can't fight 7 of them. Our weapons are mining tools. They won't even scratch their bioarmor." Elena stared at the approaching ships, watching as they moved with the fluid grace of apex predators closing in for the kill. The crew looked to her with desperate hope, but she knew the truth. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and trapped. The asteroid field that was supposed to be their salvation had become their grave. "Ma'am," Rodriguez called out, his voice hollow. "They're charging their dissolution cannons. Estimated time to weapons range, 4 minutes." The silence on the bridge stretched like a taut wire. Elena could hear her own heartbeat in her ears, feel the weight of 43 lives pressing down on her shoulders. She closed her eyes and thought of Earth, of blue skies and green fields that she would never see again. When she opened them again, something had changed. A strange calm settled over her features. "Rodriguez, patch me through to all ships." "Open channel." The young ensign's hands shook as he worked his controls. "Channel open, Captain." Elena stood slowly, straightening her uniform jacket with deliberate precision. When she spoke, her voice carried across space with crystalline clarity. Kithera vessels, this is Captain Elena Vasquez of the human mining ship Resilient Dawn. You speak of feeding our screams to your spawn. You promise swift deaths if we surrender. She paused, and, in that moment, something extraordinary happened. The corners of her mouth began to turn upward in what could only be described as a smile. It wasn't the desperate grin of someone losing their mind. It wasn't the bitter grimace of defeat. It was something far more unsettling, genuine amusement. The thing is, Elena continued, her voice taking on an almost conversational tone, you seem to be under the impression that we're afraid of you, that we're some helpless prey species cowering before your mighty consortium. And, I have to tell you, that's really quite funny. Marcus stared at her in shock. Around the bridge, crew members exchanged confused glances. This wasn't the response of a defeated captain facing certain death. Elena's smile widened. You see, you've made a fundamental error in your calculations. You think you're the predators here. You think you're the dangerous ones. But, let me share something with you about humanity that your intelligence gathering apparently missed. The bio ships had slowed their approach, clearly puzzled by this unexpected response. The lead vessel's captain broadcast again, uncertainty creeping into its translated voice. Human, your words are meaningless. You face the might of the consortium. Your species will kneel or be consumed. Elena threw back her head and laughed, a rich, hearty sound that echoed through the bridge and across the comm channel. It was the kind of laughter that came from genuine mirth, as if she had just heard the most amusing joke in the galaxy. Oh, that's precious, she said, wiping imaginary tears from her eyes. You really don't know, do you? You've been so busy playing the boogeyman to all those civilized species that you never bothered to study what happens when you corner a human. She moved to the view screen, pressing her palms against the transparent aluminum as she gazed out at the approaching bio ships. Let me educate you about my species, Kithera. We didn't climb to the top of Earth's food chain because we were the biggest or the strongest or the fastest. We got there because we're the most adaptable, the most persistent, and the most creatively destructive species our planet ever produced. Marcus found his voice, though it came out as little more than a whisper. Captain, what are you doing? Elena's eyes never left the bio ships. My job, Chief. My job is to protect this crew and show these overgrown parasites what it means to threaten humanity. She turned back to the comm channel. You want to know what makes humans dangerous? It's not our technology. It's not our weapons. It's the fact that when we're pushed to the wall, when our backs are against the asteroid field, and our ammunition is running low, we don't despair. She gestured toward the tactical display where the bio ships continued their inexorable advance. We improvise. Elena moved to her command chair with fluid grace, her fingers flying over controls that had seemed lifeless moments before. Rodriguez, I need a full spectrum analysis of their biosignatures. Marcus, bring the reactor to full power. I don't care if it glows like a star. Thompson, prep the mining charges, all of them. And someone get me a complete geological survey of these asteroids. The bridge suddenly burst into activity as crew members threw themselves into their tasks with renewed purpose. Elena's transformation from defeated captain to confident commander had infected them all with a strange energy. Captain, Thompson called from the weapons station, the mining charges are designed for asteroid breakup, not combat. They won't penetrate bioarmor. Elena's smile turned predatory. Who said anything about penetrating their armor, Thompson? I'm thinking bigger than that. She turned to Rodriguez. Ensign, how much ferromagnetic material is in these asteroids? Rodriguez's scanner beeped rapidly as he worked. Extremely high concentrations, ma'am. Some of these rocks are nearly 40% iron-nickel composite. The magnetic fields are so strong they're interfering with our navigation systems. Perfect. Elena's laugh had taken on a genuinely frightening quality. Marcus, I need you to route all power to the main deflector array. Can you give me enough juice to create a focused magnetic pulse? Marcus's eyes widened as he began to understand. Captain, that would require overloading the entire power grid. The deflector wasn't designed for that kind of output. I know exactly what I'm asking, Chief. Can you do it or not? Marcus straightened, a grin spreading across his face. Give me 10 minutes, Captain, and may God help anyone standing in front of that array when it fires. The bio ships had closed to within 2 minutes of weapons range, their dissolution cannons beginning to glow with lethal energy. Their formation spread out to prevent the humans from attempting a desperate ramming attack. They had learned from encounters with other species that cornered prey sometimes tried such futile gestures. Elena opened the channel again. Kithara vessels, you asked for our surrender. I'm afraid I have to decline. You see, we humans have a saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Of course, we also have another saying, when life gives you asteroids full of magnetic material and overgrown space bugs who think they're scary, make those bugs regret the day they evolved opposable appendages. The lead bioship's captain was clearly growing irritated. Your words are the babbling of a madwoman. Prepare to be dissolved. Madwoman. Elena's eyes sparkled with dangerous mirth. Oh, my dear Kithara friend, you clearly don't understand the difference between madness and genius. But, don't worry, you're about to get a demonstration. She switched to internal comms. All hands, this is the captain. Secure for extreme maneuvers. What we're about to do has never been attempted before, and if it doesn't work, we'll die. But if it does work, her voice took on a tone that sent shivers down the spine of every crew member. If it does work, we're going to teach the galaxy why you don't mess with humans. Marcus's voice crackled over the comm, deflector array charged to maximum. Captain, this pulse will be visible from 3 star systems away. Elena gripped her command chair as the bio ships entered weapons range. All mining charges prepped and ready? Aye, Captain, Thompson responded. But I still don't understand how explosives designed to crack rocks are going to help us against bioarmor. Elena's smile became positively arctic. Because, Thompson, we're not going to use them on the bio ships. We're going to use them on the asteroids. Understanding dawned on the bridge crew's faces like a sunrise. Rodriguez let out a low whistle. Captain, that's either brilliant or completely insane. With humans, Elena said, her hand hovering over the firing control, there's often very little difference. Fire mining charges, all asteroids in immediate vicinity. Then, give me that magnetic pulse with everything we've got. The bridge shuddered as dozens of mining charges streaked toward the surrounding asteroids. The bio ships watched in apparent confusion as the humans seemed to be wasting their limited ammunition on random rocks. Their formation tightened, preparing to deliver the killing blow to what they perceived as a species having a final breakdown. They were about to learn that human breakdowns were very different from those of other species. The mining charges detonated in perfect sequence, their shaped explosives designed to fracture asteroids along specific fault lines. Billions of tons of magnetized rock and metal fragments exploded outward in an expanding cloud of debris. The asteroid field, which had been relatively stable for millennia, suddenly became a chaotic storm of spinning, tumbling, highly magnetic projectiles. Magnetic pulse, fire, Elena commanded. The resilient Dawn's deflector array unleashed energy equivalent to a small star's magnetic field. The pulse raced outward at light speed, striking the cloud of magnetized debris and turning it into something unprecedented in galactic warfare, a directed storm of metal moving at relativistic speeds. The bio ships had exactly 0.3 seconds to realize what was happening before the magnetic storm hit them. The lead hunter-killer, a creature that had terrorized space lanes for decades, found itself at the center of a concentrated bombardment of magnetic fragments moving at significant fractions of light speed. Its bioarmor, evolved to withstand energy weapons and conventional projectiles, had no defense against being sandblasted by an entire asteroid field moving at relativistic velocities. Elena watched with satisfaction as the proud bioship began to tumble end over end, its hull torn open by countless microimpacts. Its organic systems, dependent on electrical impulses, went haywire in the intense magnetic field. The creature that had been supreme predator moments before was now thrashing helplessly as its nervous system was scrambled by electromagnetic interference. The other bioships fared little better. 2 were caught directly in the magnetic storm and torn apart like tissue paper in a hurricane. Another 3 suffered massive system failures as their bioelectrical networks were overwhelmed. The remaining ships, furthest from the pulse center, found themselves blind and confused as their organic sensors were overloaded. Elena's laughter rang out across all frequencies as she watched the mighty Kythera fleet reduced to helpless scrap, floating among the debris. This is Captain Elena Vasquez to all Kythera vessels. You came here expecting to find prey. Instead, you found humanity. I hope you'll forgive the confusion, but it's an easy mistake to make, until you make it with humans. The bridge crew erupted in cheers as they realized what had just happened. They had not only survived an encounter with 7 bioships, they had won. Marcus was laughing so hard he could barely speak. Captain, that was the most insane, impossible thing I've ever seen. How did you even know it would work? Elena turned from the view screen, her expression thoughtful. I didn't know it would work, Chief. But that's the thing about humans. We don't let the odds stop us from trying. We see impossible situations as puzzles to be solved, not deaths to be accepted. Rodriguez was monitoring the surviving bioships. Captain, the 3 remaining vessels are trying to restart their systems. Should we finish them off? Elena considered for a moment, then shook her head. No, let them go. But first, open a channel to their fleet. When the connection was established, Elena's voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. Kythera vessels, this message is for your consortium. Today you learn what happens when you hunt humans. We don't run. We don't hide. We don't surrender. We adapt, we improvise, and we overcome. Take this message back to your masters. Humanity is not prey. We are not a species to be consumed or enslaved. We are the species that turns your weapons against you, that makes your strengths into weaknesses, that laughs in the face of impossible odds. She paused, letting the silence stretch across space. The next time you think about threatening human worlds or human ships, remember this moment. Remember that a single mining vessel crewed by 43 humans just destroyed 4 of your hunter-killers with mining equipment and creative thinking. Imagine what a prepared human fleet might do to you. Elena's final words echoed with the promise of retribution. This was your warning, Kythera. There won't be another one. Now get out of human space before we decide to show you what our warships can do. The 3 surviving bioships limped away into hyperspace, their organic hulls still sparking with electromagnetic interference. On the bridge of the resilient Dawn, 43 humans watched them go with the satisfaction of predators who had just established their territory. Elena settled back into her command chair, her expression returning to its normal calm professionalism. All right, people, let's get this ship repaired and head home. We have a report to file that's going to change how the galaxy sees humanity forever. As the resilient Dawn began its journey home, Elena couldn't help but smile. The Kythera had come hunting for prey and, instead, had awakened something far more dangerous. Human ingenuity backed into a corner. The galaxy was about to learn that humans didn't just survive in impossible situations. They thrived in them. 3 days after the asteroid field incident, the Terran Defense Force received a priority transmission that would change the course of galactic history. Admiral Sarah Mitchell stood in the Situation Room deep within Luna Base, watching the holographic display of the resilient Dawn's encounter with growing amazement. Around the table, the Joint Chiefs of Staff sat in stunned silence as Captain Vasquez's voice echoed through the chamber, describing how a mining ship had defeated 7 Kythera bioships using nothing but industrial equipment and human ingenuity. Play it again, Admiral Mitchell commanded, her weathered features etched with concentration. This was the 4th time they had reviewed the tactical data, and each viewing revealed new layers of strategic implications. General Harrison Webb, commanding officer of the Colonial Marine Corps, leaned forward in his chair. Sarah, if this footage is authentic, and all indicators suggest it is, then we've been fundamentally misunderstanding the nature of this conflict. The Kythera aren't invincible. They're just used to fighting species that play by their rules. Admiral Mitchell nodded slowly, her strategic mind already racing through possibilities. The question is, can we replicate what Vasquez accomplished on a larger scale? Her solution was brilliant, but it relied on specific circumstances: the asteroid field, the magnetic properties of the rocks, the mining charges. Dr. Elizabeth Kane, the Defense Force's chief xenobiologist, activated her datapad and began pulling up bioship specifications. Actually, Admiral, I think Captain Vasquez may have accidentally discovered a fundamental weakness in Kythera biotechnology. Their entire fleet architecture is based on organic systems, living tissue, Bioelectrical networks, electromagnetic sensory organs. They've evolved in environments where such attacks simply don't occur. She gestured to the holographic display, highlighting the electromagnetic pulse that had disabled the bioships. Look at their response patterns. They didn't just lose functionality. They experienced what can only be described as system-wide neurological trauma. It's as if someone took a human brain and subjected it to massive electrical interference. Captain Torres, the Defense Forces Chief of Intelligence, activated his own display. Which brings us to a larger strategic concern. In the 3 days since this incident, we've detected massive movement within Kithra space. Their fleets are converging on staging areas throughout their territory. They're not treating this as a minor setback. Admiral Mitchell studied the intelligence reports with growing unease. The Kithra Consortium controlled roughly 1/3 of the galaxy's inhabited systems, ruling through a combination of superior firepower and psychological intimidation. For over 2,000 years, they had expanded steadily, consuming or enslaving every species they encountered. Humanity had been marked for conquest 6 months ago, when their expansion reached the outer colonies. How are the other species reacting? The Admiral asked. Torres switched to a galactic overview, showing the territories of various alien civilizations. That's where it gets interesting. The Zalani Federation has gone to full alert status. The Makari Collective has begun moving their civilian populations away from Kithra border systems. Even the synthetic hierarchy is showing unusual activity patterns. Word is spreading faster than we anticipated. Dr. Kane looked up from her analysis. There's something else. We've been monitoring Kithra communication channels, and there's definitely panic in their command structure. The 3 surviving bioships from the Resilient Dawn encounter transmitted detailed recordings of the battle. Their fleets have apparently never faced anything like electromagnetic warfare before. General Webb stood and began pacing around the holographic display. Then, we have an opportunity here. If the Kithra are as vulnerable to EM attacks as this data suggests, we need to redesign our entire tactical doctrine. Forget trying to punch through bioarmor with conventional weapons. We hit them where they can't defend, their nervous systems. Admiral Mitchell was already thinking several moves ahead. Elizabeth, I need a complete analysis of Kithra bioship vulnerabilities. Harrison, start working with our weapons designers. I want electromagnetic warfare capabilities integrated into every ship in the fleet. And, Torres, get me a meeting with the Colonial Council. We need to coordinate our response with the civilian government. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Communications Center. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the outer colonies. It's marked Priority Alpha. Put it through, Mitchell commanded. The holographic display shifted to show the face of Colonel Marcus Reed, commanding officer of the Kepler Colony Defense Force. His expression was grim, but determined. Admiral, we've just had our own encounter with a Kithra probe fleet. 3 bioships attacked the colony transport New Horizon. Following Captain Vasquez's example, we rigged an electromagnetic pulse using the transport's industrial equipment. Reed's expression brightened. It worked, Admiral. Not only did we disable all 3 bioships, but we captured one intact. The crew is alive and unharmed, but their ship is completely neurologically compromised. We have our first Kithra prisoners. The Situation Room erupted in excited conversations. Admiral Mitchell held up her hand for silence. Colonel, this is incredible news. What's the status of the prisoners? They're in medical quarantine aboard the colony station. Our xenobiologists are working with them to establish proper communication. And Admiral, Reed paused, a slight smile crossing his features. They're terrified. Not just concerned or cautious, genuinely afraid. They keep asking how we learned to attack their souls, as they put it. Dr. Kane leaned closer to the display. Colonel, have they provided any information about their fleet movements or intentions? That's the most interesting part, Doctor. They seem to believe that we've always possessed electromagnetic warfare capabilities and that we've been holding back until now. They think the previous human retreats were tactical deceptions designed to lure their fleets into vulnerable positions. General Webb laughed, a sound with little humor in it. They're giving us credit for strategic planning that we never actually implemented. The irony is beautiful. They're so used to being the ones setting traps that they can't believe we're actually just making it up as we go along. Admiral Mitchell turned to her staff. This changes everything. If the Kithara believe we've been deliberately concealing our capabilities, they'll be expecting coordinated electromagnetic attacks across all fronts. We need to make that belief a reality. Captain Torres was studying his intelligence reports with renewed interest. Admiral, we're detecting increased communication traffic between Kithara systems and their client species. They're calling in debts, demanding military support from civilizations they've conquered in the past. How many species are under their control? Admiral Mitchell asked. Officially, 47 different civilizations spanning 312 star systems. But, Admiral, here's where it gets interesting. We're picking up encrypted communications from several of these species. They're not rallying to support the Kithara. They're asking questions about human electromagnetic weapons and whether we might be willing to share the technology. Dr. Kane pulled up xenological data on the client species. It makes sense. Most of these civilizations were conquered, not willing allies. They've been waiting for someone to prove that the Kithara can be defeated. We may have inadvertently started the galactic equivalent of a slave rebellion. Admiral Mitchell studied the political implications with growing excitement. Torres, reach out to these civilizations through back channels. Don't make any commitments, but let them know that humanity is interested in discussing mutual defense arrangements. If we can turn the Kithara's own client states against them, we won't need to fight a war of conquest. We'll be supporting a war of liberation. General Webb was already working on tactical projections. Sarah, if even half of the client species switch sides, the Kithara suddenly find themselves outnumbered 3-1. Their advantage was never just technological. It was the size of their controlled territory. Take that away, and they become just another regional power. The Admiral activated the main communication system. All department heads, this is Admiral Mitchell. I'm calling an emergency strategy session for 0800 hours tomorrow. We're about to fundamentally redesign humanity's approach to this war. Captain Vasquez has given us more than a tactical victory. She's given us a new strategic paradigm. As the senior staff dispersed to begin their preparations, Admiral Mitchell remained in the Situation Room, studying the tactical data from the asteroid field encounter. Something about Captain Vasquez's approach continued to intrigue her. It wasn't just the electromagnetic pulse or the creative use of mining equipment. It was the mindset, the refusal to accept defeat, the ability to see opportunity in impossible circumstances, the willingness to try something that had never been attempted before. Dr. Kane approached her with a data pad full of analysis. Admiral, I've been thinking about the psychological implications of what happened out there. The Kithara have ruled through fear for 2 millennia. Every species they've encountered has eventually broken under the psychological pressure of facing their bioships. But Captain Vasquez didn't just resist their intimidation, she laughed at them. Mitchell looked up from the tactical display. Explain. Fear is a survival mechanism, but it's also a limitation. When you're afraid, you think defensively, reactively. You try to minimize losses rather than maximize gains. But when you're not afraid, when you can laugh at the things that are supposed to terrify you, you think differently. You become creative, adaptive, aggressive. You stop trying to survive and start trying to win. The Admiral considered this. You're saying that humanity's advantage isn't just technological adaptability, it's psychological resilience. More than that, I think we may be the first species the Kithara have encountered that finds them more amusing than terrifying. They're used to being the monsters in the dark. But humans, we grew up with monsters. We told ourselves stories about them. We imagined them under our beds. And eventually we learned to laugh at them. The Kithara may be apex predators, but they've never faced a species that thinks of them as just another problem to be solved. Admiral Mitchell smiled, understanding dawning in her eyes. So when they show up with their dissolution cannons and their intimidation tactics, we don't see death incarnate. We see an engineering challenge. Exactly. And that psychological difference translates into tactical advantages they can't counter because they don't understand it. They're trying to fight a war of fear against a species that treats war as a puzzle. The Admiral activated her personal communication system. Get me Captain Vasquez. I want her here on Luna Base as soon as the Resilient Dawn completes repairs. We need to understand exactly how she approached that battle, not just tactically, but psychologically. If we can teach that mindset to our fleet commanders, we may have found something more powerful than any electromagnetic weapon. As Dr. Kane left to begin her analysis, Admiral Mitchell returned to studying the battle recordings. Each time she watched Captain Vasquez's transformation from desperate fugitive to confident predator, she understood more clearly what humanity brought to galactic warfare. It wasn't superior technology or overwhelming numbers. It was the ability to laugh at impossible odds and then make those odds irrelevant through sheer creative stubbornness. Across the galaxy, the Kythera fleets continued their mobilization, preparing for what they believed would be a war against an enemy that had been concealing devastating weapons. They were gathering their forces for a campaign against a civilization they thought they understood. They were about to discover that humans were far more dangerous than any weapon they might wield. They were about to face a species that didn't just fight wars, they reinvented them. The War Council that convened aboard the flagship Indomitable represented the largest gathering of human military leadership since the founding of the Terran Defense Force. Admiral Mitchell had called together fleet commanders from across human space, along with representatives from the Colonial Council and the scientific community. At the center of the massive holographic conference table sat Captain Elena Vasquez, still wearing the patched uniform of a mining ship captain, looking slightly overwhelmed by the attention. Fleet Admiral Chun, commanding officer of the Third Fleet, leaned forward with obvious skepticism. With respect, Admiral Mitchell, I understand that Captain Vasquez achieved a remarkable tactical victory, but we're talking about restructuring our entire military doctrine based on a single engagement against a probe force. The Kythera main battle fleets are a completely different threat level. Admiral Mitchell activated the central display, showing intelligence reports from across the galaxy. That might have been true a week ago, Chun, but the situation has evolved dramatically. Captain Torres briefed the Council on current intelligence. Torres stood, his expression grim but excited. In the past 7 days, we've documented 14 separate incidents of client species attacking Kythera installations using improvised electromagnetic weapons. The Vraxii Collective managed to disable an entire bioship squadron guarding their home system. The Ninthari have declared independence from the consortium and are requesting human technical assistance. Most significantly, the Zilani Federation has formally proposed a military alliance. Admiral Reyes of the Fifth Fleet looked stunned. The Zilani? They've been neutral for over a century. What changed their minds? Dr. Kane activated her section of the display, showing bioship vulnerability analyses. Captain Vasquez's victory proved something that galactic military doctrine has assumed was impossible for 2,000 years. The Kythera can be defeated by inferior forces using unconventional tactics. Every species in the galaxy has been living in fear of inevitable conquest. Now they know that's not true. Captain Vasquez finally spoke, her voice quiet but carrying across the chamber. Admirals, if I may, I think you're overcomplicating this. The Kythera are bullies, very effective bullies, but bullies nonetheless. Their entire strategy is based on psychological intimidation backed by superior firepower. But what happens when someone refuses to be intimidated? Fleet Admiral Chen frowned. They use that superior firepower to destroy you. Vasquez shook her head. That's what they want to do, but it's not what they're equipped to do. Their bioships are designed for terror attacks against helpless opponents, not for actual military combat against prepared resistance. They've never had to fight a real war, because nobody has ever forced them to fight one. Admiral Mitchell brought up tactical projections. Explain what you mean, Captain. Vasquez stood and moved to the holographic display, manipulating the tactical overview with the confidence of someone who had lived through the experience. Look at their formation patterns from every documented Kythera attack over the past 50 years. They always attack in small groups, usually 3 to 7 ships, focusing on psychological impact rather than military objectives. They target civilian populations, infrastructure, and economic centers. They avoid anything that looks like it might shoot back effectively. She highlighted specific battle patterns. They're not conquerors in the traditional sense. They're raiders who have convinced the galaxy that resistance is futile. But what happens when someone calls their bluff? What happens when someone treats them like the raiders they actually are instead of the unstoppable force they pretend to be? General Webb was studying the analysis with growing understanding. They lose their psychological advantage. Without the fear factor, They're just another hostile fleet that can be engaged with conventional tactics. Exactly, Vasquez continued. And, more importantly, their bioships have a critical weakness that no one has exploited before. They're living creatures, which means they're vulnerable to biological and electromagnetic attacks that conventional warships can resist. We're not fighting starships, we're fighting spacefaring animals. Dr. Kane pulled up detailed bioship schematics captured from the intact vessel at Kepler Colony. The captain is absolutely correct. Kythera bioships are essentially enormous flying nervous systems encased in organic armor. Their weapons, propulsion, sensors, and life support are all integrated into a single biological matrix. Disrupt that matrix, and the entire ship becomes helpless. Fleet Admiral Chen studied the schematics with the eye of an experienced combat commander. If that's true, then our electromagnetic weapons aren't just effective against them, they're devastating. Every ship in our fleet has the potential to disable multiple bioships with properly focused EM pulses. Admiral Mitchell activated another section of the display, which brings us to the strategic picture. Intelligence indicates that the Kythera are massing their forces for what they believe will be a final assault on human space. They're bringing in bioships from across their territory, the largest fleet concentration in their recorded history. Captain Torres overlaid fleet movement data. Current projections show approximately 300 bioships converging on the Proxima Centauri system. They're treating this as a demonstration campaign, one massive attack designed to break human resistance and convince the client species that rebellion is hopeless. The council fell silent as the implications became clear. Admiral Reyes was the first to speak. 300 bioships. Even with electromagnetic weapons, our entire fleet only numbers 140 vessels. The odds are still more than 2 to 1 against us. Vasquez smiled, and several council members recognized the expression from her transmitted battle recordings. Admirals, you're still thinking like they want you to think. You're assuming this is a conventional fleet engagement where numbers determine victory. But what if it's not? What if we use their expectations against them? Admiral Mitchell leaned forward with interest. What do you have in mind, Captain? The Kythera are bringing 300 ships to Proxima Centauri because they want to make a statement. They want to demonstrate their power so overwhelmingly that no other species will dare to resist them. But what if we turn that demonstration around? What if we use their own show of force to prove that they can be defeated? General Webb was beginning to see the strategic possibilities. You're talking about deliberately engaging their entire fleet, making Proxima Centauri a showcase battle that proves human capabilities to the entire galaxy. More than that, Vasquez continued, I'm talking about making it a trap. The Kythera think they're coming to crush a desperate human defense. What if instead they find themselves in the middle of the largest electromagnetic warfare demonstration in galactic history? Dr. Kane pulled up stellar cartography data for the Proxima Centauri system. The system has significant strategic advantages for electromagnetic warfare. High solar activity, multiple asteroid fields with metallic compositions similar to the ones Captain Vasquez used, and gravitational anomalies that could amplify EM pulse effects. Admiral Mitchell was studying the tactical possibilities with growing excitement. We wouldn't just be fighting a defensive battle. We'd be creating a laboratory experiment on a system-wide scale. Captain Torres added intelligence analysis to the display. There's another factor to consider. Every major species in the galaxy will be watching this engagement. If we win decisively, it won't just be a military victory. It will be a political revolution that reshapes galactic power structures. Fleet Admiral Chen still looked skeptical. It's an enormous risk. If we lose, humanity is effectively eliminated as a galactic power. The client species' rebellions collapse, and the Kythera consolidate their control permanently. Vasquez turned to face the senior admiral directly. Sir, with respect, we're going to lose eventually if we keep fighting defensively. The Kythera have unlimited resources and patience. They can afford to probe our defenses for decades, learning our capabilities and adapting their tactics. But they can't afford to look weak in front of their client species. They have to win at Proxima Centauri, and win decisively, or their entire political structure starts to collapse. Admiral Mitchell stood, her decision crystallizing. Captain Vasquez is correct. This isn't just about military tactics. It's about breaking the psychological foundation of Kithra power. We have one opportunity to prove that they can be defeated by an inferior force using superior tactics. If we succeed, we don't just save humanity, we liberate half the galaxy. General Webb was already working on preliminary tactical plans. We'll need to coordinate with the client species rebellions. If they can launch simultaneous attacks on Kithra rear areas while the main fleet is engaged at Proxima Centauri, we maximize the political impact of our victory. Dr. Kane was running calculations on her data pad. We'll also need to develop new electromagnetic warfare technologies specifically designed to exploit bioship vulnerabilities. I recommend we work with the captured Kithra vessel to test weapon effectiveness under controlled conditions. Captain Torres looked up from his intelligence analysis. There's one more factor to consider. The Kithra aren't just bringing 300 bioships to Proxima Centauri. They're bringing their command structure, their elite units, and their most experienced crews. If we can eliminate or capture a significant portion of their leadership, the psychological impact on their empire would be devastating. Admiral Mitchell made her decision with the certainty of a commander who had seen opportunity in crisis. Very well. We commit to making our stand at Proxima Centauri. All fleet commanders will begin immediate preparations for system-wide electromagnetic warfare operations. Dr. Kane will lead a crash program to develop specialized anti-bioship weapons. Captain Torres will coordinate with client species resistance movements to ensure maximum political impact. She turned to Captain Vasquez. Captain, I'm offering you field promotion to Commodore and command of the Experimental Warfare Task Force. Your job will be to work with our engineers to develop tactics that turn bioship strengths into weaknesses. Vasquez looked around the council table at the faces of humanity's senior military leadership, all of them now looking to her for strategic guidance. Admirals, I accept the promotion, but I want to make one thing clear. What we're planning isn't conventional warfare. It's not even unconventional warfare. It's something completely new, warfare that treats the enemy's psychology as a legitimate target and their expectations as weapons to be turned against them. Fleet Admiral Chen finally nodded with growing appreciation. You're talking about fighting a war that exists as much in the enemy's minds as in physical space. Exactly. The Kithra have ruled through fear for 2,000 years because they've convinced everyone that they're invincible. But fear is just an emotion, and emotions can be changed. We're going to prove that the monsters aren't so scary after all. Admiral Mitchell looked around the council table one final time. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our strategy. The Kithra think they're coming to Proxima Centauri to crush the last human resistance. Instead, they're going to witness the birth of a new kind of warfare and the end of their empire. As the council dispersed to begin preparation for what would become known as the Battle of Proxima Centauri, Captain Vasquez remained behind, studying the tactical displays. Admiral Mitchell approached her with obvious concern. Second thoughts, Commodore? Vasquez shook her head, her expression thoughtful. Not second thoughts, Admiral. I'm just thinking about something one of the Kithra captains told us. They said we had learned to attack their souls. I didn't understand what they meant at the time, but I think I do now. Explain. We're not just fighting their ships or their technology. We're fighting the idea of what they represent. The concept that superior force automatically equals victory, that fear is a legitimate basis for government, that some species are naturally predators while others are naturally prey. We're proving that those ideas are wrong. Admiral Mitchell smiled with grim satisfaction. Then, let's go prove it to the galaxy, Commodore. It's time to show 300 bioships what happens when the prey decides to hunt the predators. The Kithra fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Proxima Centauri system like a plague of locusts blotting out the stars. 300 bioships arranged themselves in the traditional consortium attack formation, a massive crescent designed to inspire terror in any defenders who might witness their approach. At the center of the formation, the flagship Devourer of Worlds pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that had intimidated 1,000 worlds into submission. Supreme War Leader Vexthal stood in the neural command center of his flagship, his chitinous form connected to the bioship's nervous system through organic interface cables. For 8 centuries, he had led consortium fleets in the conquest of 47 star systems. No enemy had ever survived contact with a force under his command. Today, he would demonstrate to the galaxy what happened to species that dared to resist Kithra supremacy. Neural scouts report human fleet positions, hissed his second-in-command, war leader Kexvor. 60 vessels detected near the fourth planet. They appear to be in defensive formation around their colony worlds. Vexthal's satisfaction manifested as a deep thrumming that resonated through the bioship's hull. 60 vessels against 300. They are either supremely confident or completely insane. Deploy hunter-killer squadrons to probe their defenses. We will savor their fear before we consume their ships. 24 bioships detached from the main formation and accelerated toward the human fleet, their dissolution cannons beginning to glow with lethal energy. As they approached the fourth planet, their organic sensors detected something unexpected. The human ships weren't cowering behind planetary defenses or attempting to flee. Instead, they were moving to intercept, their formation loose and seemingly unprofessional. Aboard the human flagship Defiance, Commodore Vasquez watched the approaching bioships with the calm focus of a chess master who had spent weeks planning every move. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their confidence born from extensive drilling with their new electromagnetic warfare systems. Kythera probe force is entering optimum engagement range, reported Lieutenant Commander Harrison from the tactical station. 60,000 kilometers and closing. Vasquez smiled, recognizing the formation pattern from dozens of intelligence briefings. They're following standard Kythera intimidation protocol. First contact with probe force, psychological pressure through superior numbers, demand for surrender, then escalating violence until resistance breaks. Admiral Mitchell's voice crackled over the communication system from her position aboard the command vessel Indomitable. Commodore, you have tactical control of this engagement. Show them what we've learned. Acknowledged, Admiral. Vasquez activated the fleet-wide communication network. All ships, this is Commodore Vasquez. Remember, we're not fighting ships. We're fighting the idea that they're invincible. Let's break that idea permanently. Implement Battle Plan Omega. The human fleet suddenly scattered like startled fish, their formation dissolving into what appeared to be complete chaos. Individual ships accelerated in different directions, some toward the approaching bioships, others toward the asteroid fields that dotted the system. To the Kythera commanders, it looked like the expected collapse of inferior forces facing superior predators. War leader Kexvor directed the probe force with predatory satisfaction. Human resistance is collapsing. Pursue scattered vessels. Demonstrate the futility of flight. The bioships split into hunting groups, each pursuing what they believed were fleeing human vessels. They had used this tactic thousands of times before. Scatter the enemy fleet, hunt down individual ships, destroy them one by one, while broadcasting their death screams to demoralize any surviving defenders. They had no way of knowing that every human ship they were chasing was leading them into a carefully prepared trap. Lieutenant Sarah Chun piloted the destroyer Retribution through the outer asteroid belt with the Kythera hunter-killer Flesh Render in close pursuit. Her ship's hull groaned under the stress of violent maneuvering as she wove between massive rotating rocks, each one carefully selected for its high metallic content during pre-battle reconnaissance. "Ma'am, the bioship is gaining on us," reported her tactical officer. "They'll be in firing range in 30 seconds. Chin's smile would have made Commodore Vasquez proud. "Perfect. I'll stop. Bring us about to face them. It's time to spring the trap." The Retribution suddenly reversed course, its engines screaming as it decelerated and turned to face its pursuer. The bioship, expecting continued flight, found itself within point-blank range of a human destroyer whose weapons were specifically designed to exploit bioship vulnerabilities. "Fire electromagnetic torpedo spread," Chen commanded. 6 torpedoes streaked toward the bioship, each one containing electromagnetic pulse generators calibrated to disrupt organic nervous systems. The Kythera vessel attempted evasive maneuvers, but its binaural reflexes were no match for human targeting computers. 4 of the 6 torpedoes struck home, their EM warheads detonating against the bioship's hull. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Flesh Render convulsed like a living creature in agony, its bioluminescent patterns flickering wildly before going dark. Internal bioelectrical systems overloaded, causing massive neural trauma throughout the ship's organic matrix. The vessel that had been a graceful predator moments before became a helpless hulk drifting among the asteroids. Similar scenes played out across the star system as human ships led their pursuers into predetermined kill zones. Each asteroid field, each gravitational anomaly, each area of intense solar radiation had been mapped and prepared as an electromagnetic warfare laboratory. The Kithara hunters found themselves becoming the hunted as human destroyers, and cruisers emerged from concealment to engage them with devastating EM weaponry. Aboard the Devourer of Worlds, Supreme War Leader Vexthul watched his probe force being systematically destroyed with growing disbelief. In less than 20 minutes, 18 of his 24 hunter-killers had been disabled or destroyed. The remaining 6 were fleeing back toward the main fleet, their bioneural systems barely functional. "How is this possible?" he demanded, his psychic emanations causing nervous system fluctuations throughout the bioship. "Human technology is inferior. Their weapons are primitive." War Leader Kexvor was studying the tactical data with mounting horror. "Supreme Leader, they are not using conventional weapons. These electromagnetic attacks, they are attacking our bioneural networks directly. It is as if they have developed weapons specifically designed to kill bioships." Vexthul's rage manifested as bioluminescent pulses that coursed through the command center. "Impossible. No species has ever developed such technology. It would require understanding of bioship architecture that only the consortium possesses. Nevertheless, the evidence is clear. The humans have somehow learned to attack our neural systems. They are treating our bioships as living targets rather than technological ones." The implications hit Vexthul like physical blows. For 2,000 years, the Kithara advantage had been based on the assumption that their biotechnology was incomprehensible to other species. Enemy weapons were designed to destroy metal and ceramic hulls, not living neural networks. But if the humans had cracked the secret of bioship vulnerability, "All ships, advance to maximum engagement range," Vexthul commanded. "We will crush them with overwhelming force before they can deploy more of these neural weapons." The massive Kithara fleet began its approach toward the inner system, their formation tight and disciplined despite the shocking losses of the probe force. 300 bioships advancing in perfect synchronization was a sight that had brought terror to every corner of the galaxy. Today, it would serve as a demonstration that superior numbers could overcome any technological advantage. Commodore Vasquez watched the approaching armada from the bridge of the Defiance with the satisfaction of a plan proceeding exactly as designed. "All ships, Phase 2 of Battle Plan Omega. Take positions for system-wide electromagnetic pulse." The human fleet, which had been scattered across the system during the probe force engagement, began converging on predetermined positions around Proxima Centauri itself. Each ship took up station at carefully calculated points that would maximize the effectiveness of their coordinated electromagnetic attack. Dr. Kane's voice came over the communication system from her position aboard the science vessel Discovery. "Commodore, stellar electromagnetic field generators are in position and charging. We're ready to turn this entire star system into the largest EM warfare laboratory in galactic history." Admiral Mitchell's transmission carried across the fleet from the command vessel. "All ships, this is Admiral Mitchell. What we do in the next hour will determine not just the fate of humanity, but the future of freedom for every species in the galaxy. Today, we prove that tyranny can be defeated by those brave enough to resist it." Vasquez activated the fleet-wide communication network one final time before the main engagement. "All ships, remember what we learned from the first encounter with these bullies. They rely on fear, but fear is just an emotion. They rely on superior numbers, but numbers don't matter when your technology is obsolete. They think they're apex predators, but today they learn that humans are the apex problem solvers." She paused, watching the massive Kithara fleet approach maximum engagement range. "When you're scared, you think defensively. When you're confident, you think creatively. And when you're human, you think impossibly. All ships, prepare to demonstrate why impossibility is just another word for engineering challenge." Supreme War Leader Vexthul felt the first tremors of uncertainty as his fleet entered what the humans apparently considered engagement range. Nothing was happening. No desperate defensive fire, no attempts at ramming attacks, no surrendering broadcasts. The human ships simply waited in their strange formation around the star itself. War Leader Kexvor, sensor analysis. What are the humans doing? Kexfor's confusion was evident in his bioelectrical emanations. Supreme Leader, their formation makes no tactical sense. They have positioned their vessels to provide mutual support around their star, but they are also exposing themselves to concentrated fire from our entire fleet. It appears to be either brilliant strategy or complete madness. Vexthal studied the tactical display with growing suspicion. Everything about this engagement defied conventional military logic. The humans should have been terrified into surrender by now. Instead, they seem to be waiting for something. Open communication channel to the human fleet. I will offer them one final opportunity to surrender before we begin their annihilation. The transmission went out on all frequencies, Vexthal's translated voice carrying the weight of 2 millennia of conquest. Human vessels, you are surrounded and outnumbered 5-1. Your probe force has been eliminated, and your defensive positions are inadequate. Surrender now, and your deaths will be swift. The response came immediately, and it was the last thing Vexthal expected to hear. It was laughter, rich, genuine, human laughter that seemed to echo across the void of space. Commodore Vasquez's voice followed the laughter, carrying amusement and absolute confidence. Supreme War Leader Vexthal, this is Commodore Elena Vasquez of the Terran Defense Force. We appreciate your generous offer, but I'm afraid we have a counterproposal. How about you surrender to us instead? We promise your deaths will be swift. The Kithara commander's bioluminescent patterns flared with rage. Your arrogance will be your destruction, human. All ships, open fire. Demonstrate the price of defying the consortium. 300 bioships opened fire simultaneously, their dissolution cannons sending streams of molecular acid toward the human fleet. It was the largest coordinated attack in Kithara military history, enough firepower to sterilize a dozen worlds. But instead of striking human ships, the dissolution streams encountered something unprecedented in galactic warfare, a coordinated electromagnetic field that surrounded the entire star system. The molecular acid weapons, designed to dissolve solid matter, found themselves disrupted at the atomic level by electromagnetic forces that made conventional matter behave in impossible ways. Commodore Vasquez's voice rang out across all frequencies as the Kithara attack was neutralized. Supreme War Leader, you seem to be laboring under a fundamental misunderstanding. You think this is a battle between your 300 ships and our 60 ships. But it's not. This is a battle between your 300 bioships and our star. The electromagnetic pulse that erupted from Proxima Centauri was visible from neighboring star systems. Every piece of metallic asteroid debris, every charged particle in the stellar wind, every electromagnetic field line in the system suddenly became part of the largest directed energy weapon ever constructed. The pulse didn't just target the Kithara bioships. It turned the entire system into a neural disruption field that made conventional thought impossible for any organic nervous system. Supreme War Leader Vexthal felt his consciousness fragment as the pulse tore through his bioship's neural networks. Around him, 300 vessels that had been the terror of the galaxy convulsed in collective agony before going silent and dead in the void of space. The last thing Vexthal heard before unconsciousness claimed him was human laughter echoing through space, not mocking or cruel, but genuinely amused, as if the humans had just solved a particularly interesting puzzle. 6 months after the Battle of Proxima Centauri, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The electromagnetic pulse that neutralized 300 Kithara bioships had been witnessed by observation platforms across dozens of star systems, and the recordings spread through galactic communication networks faster than light itself could travel. Within weeks, the psychological foundation of Kithara dominance had crumbled completely. Admiral Mitchell stood in the observation deck of the newly commissioned Starbase Liberation, watching the steady stream of ships arriving from former Kithara client worlds. Each vessel carried refugees, diplomats, or volunteers eager to join what the galactic media had dubbed the Human Alliance, though Elena Vasquez privately referred to it as the galaxy's biggest engineering club. The woman herself, now bearing the rank of admiral, approached the observation window carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing an expression of bemused satisfaction. "Penny for your thoughts, Sarah." Mitchell accepted the coffee gratefully. "I'm thinking about irony, Elena. 6 months ago, We were a minor species on the edge of known space, marked for conquest by the galaxy's most feared empire. Today, we're accidentally running the largest liberation movement in galactic history. Through the transparent aluminum window, they could see the Zilani Federation flagship Harmony of Purpose docking with the station. The elegant vessel represented one of 47 different species that had thrown off Kithra rule in the weeks following Proxima Centauri. Each one had sent representatives to learn electromagnetic warfare techniques from the humans who had proven that the monsters could be defeated. Speaking of irony, Vasquez continued, have you read the latest intelligence reports from Kithra space? It seems our former enemies are having what Dr. Kane calls an existential crisis. Admiral Mitchell pulled up the intelligence data on her personal display. The reports painted a picture of an empire in complete psychological collapse. Without their reputation for invincibility, the Kithra found themselves unable to maintain control over their remaining territories. Worse, many bioship crews were experiencing what could only be described as clinical depression, a consequence of learning that their entire worldview was based on false premises. 300 bioships captured intact, Mitchell read from the report. Crews and medical rehabilitation aboard our facilities. No casualties among human forces. Elena, do you realize we fought the largest space battle in recorded galactic history without losing a single person? Vasquez smiled, the same expression that had echoed across space during that first encounter in the asteroid field. That's because we weren't really fighting a space battle, Sarah. We were debugging a psychological program that had been running for 2,000 years. Once we figured out the code, the solution was obvious. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Kane, who approached carrying a data pad and wearing the expression of someone who had made an interesting discovery. Admiral, you need to see this. We've just completed psychological evaluations of the captured Kithra crews, and the results are, well, they're unprecedented. She activated her data pad's holographic display, showing brain scan comparisons between Kithra warriors before and after exposure to electromagnetic warfare. The bioelectrical disruption didn't just disable their ships, it fundamentally altered their neurological patterns. They're no longer capable of the aggressive behavior that made them effective conquerors. Vasquez studied the scans with growing fascination. You're saying we accidentally gave them therapy? In a sense, yes. The electromagnetic pulse disrupted the neural pathways associated with predatory behavior and dominance assertion. They're still the same individuals, but they can no longer conceptualize other species as prey. It's as if we cured them of being bullies. Admiral Mitchell considered the implications. What about their empire? The remaining bioships that weren't at Proxima Centauri. Dr. Kane switched to political analysis data. That's where it gets interesting. Word of what happened to their fleet has spread throughout Kithra space. Many of their remaining crews are voluntarily submitting to electromagnetic therapy. They want to be cured of their predatory conditioning. It's the first recorded case of an entire species voluntarily abandoning its cultural programming. The irony wasn't lost on any of them. Humanity had set out to defend itself against conquest and had accidentally become galactic therapists for a species suffering from what Dr. Kane had termed chronic aggressive dysfunction. Their discussion was interrupted by an urgent communication from the station's command center. Admiral Mitchell, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. President Chen wishes to speak with you immediately. The three officers made their way to the secure communications center, where President Chen's face appeared on the main display. The leader of the Terran colonial government looked simultaneously proud and overwhelmed. Admiral Mitchell, Admiral Vasquez, Dr. Kane, congratulations on another successful diplomatic mission. The Makari Collective has just signed a mutual defense treaty with humanity, bringing our total alliance membership to 51 species spanning over 400 star systems. President Chen paused, clearly still adjusting to the scale of change. However, I'm calling because we have a situation that requires your expertise. It seems that our success has attracted attention from everyone. We're receiving communication requests from species we didn't even know existed, all wanting to learn about electromagnetic warfare and human tactical doctrine. Admiral Vasquez leaned forward with interest. What kind of attention, Mr. President? The kind that includes species from the galactic core regions, civilizations so advanced that they make the Kithra look like primitive raiders. They're requesting formal contact with humanity to discuss what they call consciousness-based warfare applications. Dr. Kane looked up from her analysis. Consciousness-based warfare? They're talking about using our electromagnetic techniques not just to disable enemy technology, but to directly modify enemy psychology. President Chen nodded grimly. Which brings us to the real reason for this call. The Galactic Council, the organization that's supposed to govern interstellar relations among the most advanced species, has formally invited humanity to join as a full member. We would be the youngest species ever granted such status. Admiral Mitchell felt a familiar sensation, the same mix of opportunity and impossibility that had characterized every major decision since the first encounter with Kithara raiders. What are the implications of membership? According to the diplomatic brief, we would become one of 12 species responsible for maintaining galactic peace and preventing the kind of empire building that the Kithara represented. We'd also gain access to technologies and knowledge that we can't even conceptualize yet. Vasquez was studying stellar cartographic data on her personal display. And the responsibilities? That's where it gets complicated. As the species that proved conventional military dominance could be overcome by creative problem-solving, we'd be expected to serve as, well, as galactic peacekeepers. Not through force, but through the kind of innovative thinking that defeated the Kithara without killing anyone. The three officers exchanged glances. 6 months ago, they had been fighting for humanity's survival. Now they were being asked to take responsibility for galactic civilization itself. Admiral Mitchell made the decision with the same calm certainty that had characterized every human victory since the asteroid field encounter. Mr. President, speaking for the Defense Force, we accept the responsibility. But we do it on human terms. Explain. Vasquez answered for her. We don't become galactic police, enforcing peace through superior firepower. We become galactic engineers, solving conflicts the way we solved the Kithara problem, by understanding the real issue and finding creative solutions that make everyone better off. Dr. Kane added her perspective. And we share everything we learn. No hoarding technology or knowledge for strategic advantage. If we're going to be responsible for galactic peace, then every species gets access to the tools they need to solve their own problems. President Chen smiled for the first time during the conversation. I was hoping you'd say that. Because there's one more piece of information I haven't shared yet. The Galactic Council didn't invite us to join because they want our military capabilities. They invited us because they've been studying our approach to the Kithara conflict, and they believe humanity represents something unprecedented in galactic history. Which is, Admiral Mitchell prompted, a species that treats war as a problem to be solved rather than a contest to be won. They think we might be the first civilization capable of making large-scale warfare obsolete by making it irrelevant. Vasquez laughed, the same sound that had echoed across space during humanity's first victory. They want us to debug the galaxy. Essentially, yes. They want us to approach galactic conflicts the way you approached the Kithara Empire. Identify the real problem, understand the underlying psychology, and find solutions that address the root causes rather than just the symptoms. Admiral Mitchell looked out through the communication center's windows at the stream of ships arriving from liberated worlds. Each vessel represented thousands or millions of beings who were free because humanity had refused to accept that resistance was futile. The responsibility was enormous, but so was the opportunity. Mr. President, tell the Galactic Council that humanity accepts their invitation. But make sure they understand our conditions. We don't rule, we solve problems. We don't conquer, we liberate. And we don't keep secrets. We share everything we learn. As President Chen signed off to deliver humanity's response to the Galactic Council, the three officers remained in the communication center, watching the parade of ships outside. Each vessel represented a species that had learned something remarkable, that the most terrifying predators in the galaxy could be defeated not through superior weapons, but through superior thinking. Dr. Kane broke the comfortable silence. You know, we still haven't figured out the most important question. Which is, Vasquez asked, why us? Why were humans the first species to discover that the Kithara could be defeated? Dozens of civilizations had the technology to develop electromagnetic weapons. Many species had encountered bioships before. What made us different? Admiral Mitchell considered the question while watching a former Kithara bioship, now crewed by volunteers from 6 different species, dock with the station for medical supplies. The ship's bioluminescent patterns had changed from the aggressive reds and purples of a predator to the gentle blues and greens of a creature at peace. I think it's because we're the only species that grew up expecting monsters to exist, she said finally. Every other civilization developed in relatively peaceful environments. They built societies based on cooperation and rational discourse. When they encountered the Kithera, they tried to apply those same principles and failed. Vasquez nodded slowly. But humans grew up on a world where everything was trying to kill us. We evolved expecting that survival would require creative problem-solving under impossible circumstances. When we met the monsters, we didn't try to reason with them or hide from them. We laughed at them, Dr. Kane finished. Because we'd been dealing with monsters our entire evolutionary history. The Kithera were just another engineering problem that needed an innovative solution. As if summoned by their conversation, a new ship appeared on the edge of sensor range, sleek, elegant, and clearly representing technology far beyond anything in the current galaxy. The communication system activated automatically as the vessel transmitted on all frequencies. Human Starbase Liberation. This is the exploration vessel synthesis of the Ankari Collective. We represent the core galactic civilizations and have traveled here to meet the species that ended the age of fear through the application of creative intelligence. We request permission to dock. Admiral Mitchell activated the communication system with the same calm confidence that had become humanity's signature in galactic affairs. Ankari Vessel Synthesis. This is Admiral Mitchell of the Terran Defense Force. Permission granted. Welcome to the problem-solving business. As the advanced vessel approached the station, Vasquez couldn't help but smile. 6 months ago, she had been a mining ship captain trying to protect her crew from raiders. Today, she was about to meet representatives of the galaxy's most ancient civilizations, who wanted to learn how humans turned impossible situations into engineering challenges. You know what I think? She said to her companions. I think we're just getting started. If the core civilizations want to learn human problem-solving techniques, it means there are bigger challenges out there than the Kithera ever represented. Admiral Mitchell watched the synthesis complete its docking procedures. Good. I was starting to worry we might run out of interesting problems to solve. Dr. Kane pulled up her latest research data. Oh, I don't think we'll have that problem. According to these initial reports from our new allies, there are phenomena in the galactic core that make the Kithera look like a minor technical difficulty. As the 3 officers prepared to meet their visitors from the ancient civilizations, each of them felt the familiar anticipation that came with encountering a new puzzle. Somewhere in the galaxy, impossible problems were waiting for human ingenuity to make them possible. The age of fear was over. The age of engineering had begun. And, in the vast reaches of space, human laughter continued to echo, not mocking or cruel, but filled with the genuine joy of a species that had discovered its true calling. They weren't conquerors or rulers or even warriors in the traditional sense. They were the galaxy's debugging specialists, and business was about to get very good indeed.